So I am assuming that you have applied to UNC Chapel Hill and received an acceptance letter and accepted the acceptance letter. Or maybe you have not gone through that process yet, in which case I still recommend this video because it will give you some more insight into how UNC Chapel Hill works, at least on the advising side. And I wish I had a video that I could have watched before I accepted. I probably would have anyway, but it's just good to know how as much as you can know works at the school, whether it be financial aid, whether it be advising, admissions, how you pick your courses. All of these little things are actually very important when you are considering a university or a college in general, because it can affect your experience in a positive way or a negative way. So if you are officially going to be a UNC Chapel Hill student, this video is for you. But if you are officially not yet a UNC Chapel Hill student, I still think this video is for you, and I do recommend watching it to get some more insight on how the advising side of things works and how everything kind of comes together with classes and majors and all of that. So I really wanted to make this video to share some advising tips, because trying to talk with your advisor is going to be a bit of a challenge. I will say it's going to be tough. So try to get as much information as you can from this video. And then any other questions that you might have, write them down. Write as many questions as you can down for your advisor, because you're not going to talk with them very often. And I honestly would not recommend it anyway, just because it takes a lot of time to set up an appointment, talk with them. It just, in my opinion, I just think that's a hassle. So the more information you can get, not speaking with an advisor, and the less time you have to speak with an advisor, the more time you have to study or do something fun, etc., etc. So without further ado, I am going to jump into the crux of this video. So the requirements is what I will be going over first, generally speaking. So the core requirements will vary based on major, obviously. This is probably done better if I show you. I don't know really what I could tell you aside from what I will show you in a minute, but the core requirements can vary based on how many core requirements you have, depending on the major and which courses you have to take. I'm going to share my cultural anthropology related major as an example, and then a couple of other majors, just to give you an idea of what the core requirements will be and what that could look like for different majors. And then they also, UNC Chapel Hill has this unique requirement situation where you have to have certain initial / acronym requirements. So you have to have an HS, a QI, and all these different little acronyms to fulfill certain requirements. So it's sort of like a sub-requirement to the core requirements. And even electives, they do apply to electives as well. So you could take an HS course that's a core requirement, or the class could be an HS to fill the HS requirement, but it's an elective, if that makes sense. And then lastly, I just wanted to mention that they now have, I think it's transfer students, maybe freshmen. I'm not sure if it's both or not, but I think for transfers, they require on-campus group activity on campus, like I said. And in my opinion, I completely disagree with this. I think they actually implemented this after the lockdowns, which makes me disagree with it even more. But yeah, that's something that you will probably have to complete during your stay there. If you are a transfer student, maybe a freshman, I'm not sure, you would have to ask your advisor, or maybe there is someone that you could talk with that might be more accessible than an advisor, like a coordinator, so you could ask them as well. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into the major requirements. This is the undergrad programs of study page on UNC Chapel Hill's website. As you can see, this is the URL. So if you want to go ahead and type that in and follow along with me, feel free to do so. But this is the page you are going to come to basically self-advise yourself, because like I said, the advisors are not going to be there 100% of the time. It's very rare that they will answer your question or anything like that. So do what you can. Even if they did answer, again, you have to make an appointment. It's a whole situation. I might share some of my personal experiences with advising at the end. Let's just get on with the point of this video. Okay, so these are all of the majors that they offer. I'm pretty sure. I learned that whatever they have online is not exactly up to date all the time, so I would verify. So if you're looking at UNC Chapel Hill for a certain major, do make sure they still offer the major. And that goes with a minor as well, because I was going to minor in psychology, but they did not have a psychology minor. And then I was going to minor in sociology, but they did not have a sociology minor. So after switching a few times, I decided on English as my minor, which I'll get into probably in another video. But these are your options for majors. So I'm going to go ahead and click on my major, which is anthropology. Oh, and keep in mind, there's an anthropology general minor and there's an anthropology major. So be cognizant of which one you're choosing, because if you choose minor and you want to major in it, you're going to get the wrong information. So anthropology major, and this is the overview. This overview gives you a brief description, look at what this major is and what it might encompass, as well as potential skills you will obtain from the program. So this is the overview of what the degree is. So if you are unfamiliar with what anthropology is, you can read this description. I would also recommend checking out my video, because I have had a lot of people say, what is that, when I tell them my major. So I just created a video about it. And so if you are completely lost and you have no idea what anthropology is, I will leave that linked down in the description box below. I do go kind of slow because I am trying to get a feel for the pacing, but also I do think it's important to go slow if someone is learning, because if you go too fast, then it's hard to keep up. But if you did want to speed me up a little bit, you can, using the speed up feature on the right hand side, bottom right hand. So okay, so this is kind of the description they give you. I go into much more detail in my video. So if you are, I feel like this kind of doesn't cover everything. So yeah, I would watch the other video. And so here's your learning outcomes, requirements, opportunities, other programs, and contacts that they have listed. And that is for, I would say, every major. For the most part. Okay, so this is the overview of anthropology, the learning outcomes, and these are the requirements. So this is for the anthropology degree that I achieved. So for me, I had to earn a minimum final cumulative GPA of 2.00, complete a minimum of 45 academic credit hours earned from UNC Chapel Hill, take at least half of the major core requirement courses at UNC Chapel Hill as well. If you fit half of the core requirements, I think they do count toward the 45 academic credit hours, but do check with your advisor to make sure, because this can change. Earn a minimum cumulative GPA of 2.0 in the major core requirements. Some programs may require higher standards for major or specific courses. And then these are the core requirements. So you have to choose one from this list, one from this list. As you can see, it says core requirements. Right here underneath, it says to choose one course from the different anthropology fields. I think I had one or two I think I had one that transferred. All of the others I had to take at UNC. So really quick, for general requirements, you'll not be able to take most core courses at a community college. Try to complete as many required courses at a community college as you can. Electives will be your friend at the school, not necessarily just because of the subject, but because of the professor. Because if you get stuck in a core course, they only offer one, and there's only one professor option, and they're not that great, and they know they don't have to be that great because you have to take that course, then you're in a pickle. So try to take what core requirements you can at another college, university or community college. Do ask admissions or an advisor somewhere at UNC Chapel Hill, because for my major, I had to take at least half of the core requirements at UNC Chapel Hill. The other thing is you have to take an LFIT class. This is required for transfer and freshmen, not depending, regardless of your degree. You can take walking, swimming, yoga, tennis. They have all kinds of options. A lot of people like walking. I wanted to do something a little more active that I enjoyed, so yoga was my choice. For some of them, other than walking and jogging, you will probably have to buy something like a yoga mat or a tennis racket for tennis, some things like that. So keep that in mind. But I do highly recommend participating in an activity that you think you will enjoy rather than just walking. The other general requirement that you need is 3 foreign language courses. You have to take a placement test before you start. You could place in level 1, 2, or 3. If you place outside of level 3, then you are good to go for your foreign language course. I personally placed barely in level 1. I almost made it to level 2, but that's okay because I needed a refresher anyway. So for the foreign language courses, I would recommend looking at your options for foreign languages, because if you place low in one, then I would just recommend starting for another course. Let's say you took French in high school and you did not really enjoy it. This is your chance to switch foreign languages. Also, if you just really don't think you're going to be good at studying a language, or you think it would be much too stressful, I would recommend taking either Latin or American Sign Language. However, I do recommend that you ask your advisor to make sure that you will achieve all 3 levels. If not, then you might take it at a community college. So that's also an option. I do recommend taking the foreign languages at a good community college. I did take one Spanish course at a community college trying to fulfill my degree and that requirement, but that was not the best community college. Yeah. So be careful where you take it. Try to know who the professor is and see if you can find a good one, because it is important, especially for the language courses, in my opinion. So for some science majors, you might have labs that are required, so keep that in mind as well. Try to fulfill all the acronym requirements as much as possible, like I mentioned earlier. And then you, I think, have to take part in one organization. They changed this right after lockdowns. So those are the general requirements. So you are going to have core requirements up here, and then you are going to have possibly additional requirements, or for science majors, you're going to have lab requirements. And then down here, there's other notes if you want to look at that. There's mentions of honors version. There's just other things, depends on the major. So do look all through the page, all up and down, top to bottom, so just so you don't miss anything. The honors version is available for some courses and some majors. Not entirely sure how that works. You'd have to read the fine print based on the major. An honors course fulfills the same requirements as the non-honors version of that course. So enrollment and GPA restrictions may apply. This is why you have to read everything. For the anthropology major, you have to take the theoretical perspectives requirements, which serves as the major's core course. It offers an integrative perspective on the theories and history of anthropology and explores what it means to be an anthropologist. Majors should fulfill this requirement in their junior year. If they cannot do so, they should consult with the director of undergrad studies. So that's why you have to read everything in its entirety, because that one class from the classes they offer, that must be taken in the junior year. So I don't know if you can take it before or after, how that works. I think I managed to actually get it done in my junior year. So yeah, but if you can't for whatever reason, ask your advisor. That would be a good question to ask, just in case something happens and you can't take it in your junior year. And then, as you may know, the BA degree versus BS degree will differ in requirements, especially when it comes to math and science, probably. So do make sure you're clicking on the correct major, BA versus BS. Okay, very briefly, I am going to pick a couple of other different majors to show you, so that way you can see what other majors look like. It looks like they changed this a little bit. You used to have to click on degree type, but it looks like they've already separated it out for you on this page. For instance, biology major BA versus biology major BS. Again, make sure you click on the correct one because you might get thrown off. I'll show you an example. So you've got the exercise and sports science major BA. You click on requirements. You have these requirements. I think these are pretty general for most of them, it looks like. And then you've got the core. I think you have to take, looks like you have to take all of these for the core requirements, and then the additional requirements. And then down here, it says, the honors version available of some of them, like the introductory biology laboratory has an honors, neuromuscular control and learning has an honors option. And then just kind of read this, fulfills first year foundations requirements. So yeah, and your requirements could vary depending on whether you're a freshman or a transfer as well. Obviously, you're not going to take first year courses like first year seminar, freshman seminar, whatever they're called, because you're a transfer student. So more than likely you're transferring as a junior, or maybe a very late sophomore, depending on how many credits transfer to UNC Chapel Hill. So that's the exercise and sports science major BA. However, let's go back. If you scroll down to exercise and sports science major BS and then hit requirements, you're going to have a lot more that you have to complete. And then there's allied science electives. So anthropology's in there. And then you have a biology, a biochemistry, and it says any 3 credit hour class above biology 101, except these. So make sure you read the except. That's why you have to really read it tediously. So as you can see, the BS in exercise sports science, there's a lot. And this might tell you whether you want a BA or a BS in your whatever preferred major. And then another thing to consider also is, like for me, I would not want to spend my time getting a BS degree, it looks like. I would prefer the BA. However, it depends on what job you're wanting. So if a BS would actually give you more opportunity for whatever job it is you're wanting, then by all means go for the BS degree. But if you want to save yourself some time, or if you want to get other degrees and you don't want to stop at bachelor's, it just depends, then you might want to do the BA. So weigh a lot of options and maybe even create a list of pros and cons to the BA versus BS. And then one more. Whoops. Need to go forward. I'm going to do English major. Here it is. Okay, so there's core curriculum, and then they have different concentrations. So this is for core English majors, but if you're wanting to have a concentration in, creative writing, this would also, in conjunction with the core requirements for general English, probably, I would ask the advisor, you will have to incorporate these classes for this particular concentration. And then the same for film studies. They also have a film concentration at UNC as well. So this would be what you would have to choose from. Again, not all of these are offered. It looks like you have a lot, but you really don't. They may only offer 5 out of 20 options that they give you here, or maybe even 1. So, yeah. So hopefully that gives you a better idea of what to look for. As you can see, the layout for each major is different under requirements, because the anthropology, for example, I don't think it had this. So I think if you did want to major in another anthropology field, let me see if it's listed separately. Yeah, see, medical anthropology BA major. So there you go. So if the concentration you're looking for is not under the general degree, look for it as a separate major degree. Okay, so just a few more quick things to note. Under opportunities, I'm back in anthropology, by the way, they list special opportunities in this particular field. You can get an honors in anthropology. To do that, you have to maintain a minimum grade point average from the spring semester of the junior year through the entirety of the senior year. Secure faculty advisor. You have to do all of these little steps. So if you are really academically inclined and motivated, then this might be for you. For me, I was, but I just got to a point where I wanted to just graduate and be done with my bachelor's. But if you think you can push through, by all means. Internships, fieldwork, and independent study are also offered under here, it looks like. So they give you some class options to take. And then, of course, a study abroad tells you a little bit about that. And then undergrad awards for honors thesis award. And so it just sort of gives you a little overview if you really want to excel in whatever major you decide. So I'm going to go over minor requirements. For minors, you have to have 15 credit hours, or 5 courses is what it amounts to, and this will allow you to complete a minor. Requirements will vary depending on the minor. So I'm going to go over the English minor versus education minor, because I did actually look at this. Before I do that, though, I wanted to make sure to mention that if you are sure, try establishing a field that you like and want to study at least 5 courses. If you did want to take a minor, you don't have to. And you can make it your minor if you take 5 courses. So for the Spanish, if I had taken 2 more courses, I would have a minor in Spanish because they require 3. So you're a little over halfway there. Trying to take classes without establishing the minor will most likely be very difficult. I think this was the case because I wanted to take a lot of different art classes, but that field, they really, if you're not minoring or majoring in art or journalism or some of the others, psychology, business, they were extremely hard to enroll in. So to enroll in it, I had to mark it as a minor. So yeah, if you did want to take multiple courses, you can change your minor and get in that way. But those are really hard to do. It's basically non-existent. You basically can't take any of those courses unless you minor or major in business, journalism, psychology, and probably art as well. This list is probably not exhaustive, though. I will make that a side note. So, okay, English minor. Okay, English minor. Make sure you hit the minor. Okay, so for requirements for the English minor, you have to take at least 9 hours of the minor core requirements at UNC Chapel Hill. Sorry if you can hear noise. And so these are the core requirements for the English minor. Let's see. It looks like I think they offered more, but apparently you have to take English 120. I think I took that one. And then you have to take 3 additional English courses with 2 at or above the 200 level. So these are your options for Survey 2 courses. And then I think that's, so 1, 2 under Survey 2 courses, and then 3 English courses with 2 above the 200 level. Ask an advisor if you need clarification on any of this information. Um, and then I'm going to go to the education minor. Okay, hit requirements. Okay, so you have to take at least 9 hours of the minor core requirements. Since you apparently have more core requirements for this, I think it looks like English is more elective heavy than core heavy, but education is more core heavy. So you have to take 3 courses in the School of Education, 1 course in the College of Arts and Science, and then 1 education capstone course. And this is kind of what prevented me from getting an education minor because of the capstone. I just felt like English would be a lot easier. So there's that. I also had an English course that did transfer over, so I really only had to take 4 English classes. I was trying to minimize the amount of classes I had to take as well. So, something to consider, something to look at when you're trying to figure out what minor you want. You can also double major and or double minor, I'm pretty sure. I know you can double major with a minor, or you can major with a double minor. I'm just not sure if you can double major and double minor. May want to ask an advisor. Editing Daphne here, I was going to include my experiences, and then I realized that I did not, and I was going to leave it as is, but I decided that it's probably very important that I do include my experiences, so that way you can kind of get a feel for UNC Chapel Hill, but also so you can see why I say the things I say, and because I feel like on some level, some of what I'm saying is, or most of what I'm saying is informative, but I do feel like there's a negative undertone. So I kind of want to share my experiences to kind of explain why that is. Because when you view a video and, I include a comment or opinion about something and it's negative, I don't know, it just kind of bothers me. So I just wanted to share my experiences to hopefully help you understand why I feel the way I feel about some of the situations and some of the departments. Um, so I'm going to share, hopefully, quickly share my advising experience. So I'm just going to go ahead and start. I did all the paperwork, all the preliminary stuff, and I was speaking with, I forget the title of his occupation, but I had asked him, since he was so helpful and kind, I asked him which advisor he would recommend, and he really did not have a recommendation. So he asked around for me, and they had recommended this one advisor. And so I thought, okay, great. That's not, if I looked on the page, that's probably not who I would choose. But since they are recommending this advisor, I thought, okay, great. I will contact this advisor. And keep in mind, this was based on my experience at Florida State College at Jacksonville. So at that college, you can just kind of see an advisor. Yeah. But at UNC Chapel Hill, they assign you an advisor, which I did not realize. But I guess any advisor could really answer your question. Anyway, I'm getting off on a tangent. So I contacted this advisor via email, and I used my regular email instead of my student email because I was still setting everything up and learning how everything worked. And so I get an email back, and the first thing she mentions in the email is that I need to use my student email account and kind of basically telling me what to do. And I thought, well, you're not even answering my question. And then under that, she's wanting me to schedule a meeting. So I'm just like, I only have a few questions, and you're right off the bat, you're telling me what I need to be doing. And Granted, maybe she did not mean it that way, but that's how I read it because it was in an email and it was not on the phone, so I could not hear tonality. So that's why it's, I don't want to say you, but that's why it's recommended probably that you talk with people, and why it's, kind of important to communicate on a verbal basis and not so much email, because email can misconstrue an intention, I think, because the tonality is not there. So that was my first experience, and I thought after that, I'm not meeting with her, not after that email. So I went on the advising page and tried to find an advisor myself. And so I picked this other advisor, and she was cordial, but and I thought, okay, this is going to be my long-term advisor. But in hindsight, she was not very personable, and she had a sort of standoffish demeanor slash vibe. And I think she helped me 2 or 3 times, and that was pretty much it. So I thought, okay, well, I'm going to jump to another advisor. So I ended up having a question about something, and I emailed an advisor, no response, and I really needed a response. I emailed a couple more advisors. I think I emailed a total of 3 or 4 advisors. I think 2 did not respond at all. 1 responded, and then I asked another question, and she did not respond to that. And then I contacted another advisor. So I think I ended up calling, or tried to call, an advisor. Finally, one picked up. So I talked with this advisor, and he was kind of helpful, I guess. I don't really remember. And I just remember we were chatting, and then all of a sudden he says, I have a meeting in like 15 minutes. Can we set a time to talk later in the week? Something along those lines. And I said, yeah, sure. So I was kind of hesitant, but I gave him the benefit of the doubt. And then we set up a time later in the week, a day, and then I think the time was around 4 p.m. or 4:30 or something. Or maybe midday. I don't even remember. And so I'm waiting on the call because he said he would call me back, and he never did. So I feel like I was brushed off, and that really, it frustrated me, because as a student, I'm trying to get information, and instead of just answering my question, you're avoiding me, which in my opinion takes more energy than just answering my question. So that frustrated me because I needed to know something. So then I ended up having to contact another advisor because that advisor was just ignoring me. And so I was trying to, I think at this point, switch my minor, because I had signed up to minor in, I think, studio art or art, and I wanted to switch it. And so I emailed this advisor, and I said, I think I actually walked in first and then I emailed him. And then I said in the email, I will, I need to switch my minor. If this cannot be done soon, then I will just walk in when I have a moment. And he switched it. So that was helpful. And I just, I just, I just don't understand why I had to go the lengths that I did to get a response and to get progress, because I'm a student, and to declare a major or minor, I need an advisor, and to get my questions answered so I can sign up for courses, I need an advisor, but they're non-existent. They're ignoring me. They keep uh, sort of pushing me aside and wanting me to go the Zoom routes, so that way I guess it's convenient for them, which I did. I thought, okay, at one point I will do what they say, because it's not going to work out. I know it's not going to work out, and I'm going to tell them it's not going to work out. So I did it their way, and I got on the Zoom list. There was a walk-in list, air quotes, where you get in line on Zoom, and then they admit you into the waiting room. Well, I was admitted, I guess. I don't know. My name dropped off and I was not in a room. I was in limbo or something. I don't know what was happening. So I thought, okay, this is a waste of time. So I went in to see an advisor in person again. And I could be getting this a little bit off in sequence. I might have done this before seeing the first advisor that I walked in on in person. But I wasn't able to get into the Zoom room, so I just scratched it and did not try it. And they kept trying to pull me back into the Zoom room. And I said, that's not working. There's a lot of technical issues. I have assignments I need to do. I have things I need to do. I have to work. I don't have time to be sitting in front of a laptop staring into the abyss waiting on an advisor. So I just walked in on another advisor and I just had a quick question, maybe two, and I asked it. I got what I needed, and yeah, that's kind of, the gist of my advising experience. But I will say that the last advisor I did go to, I had to push a little in the beginning, which again, I don't understand why. I mean, I get that they're busy, but I don't know, someone needs to change the policy or something. I don't know what needs to happen, but I'm not going to progress in my major and I'm not going to graduate if I don't get what I need to graduate. I'm not going to graduate if I don't know what classes to take. I mean, I can't just be swimming in the ocean, not knowing where I'm going or what's happening. I need some guidance. So she was actually very knowledgeable. And once she, started communicating a little more, I feel like she was a good advisor. In the end, I just kind of don't understand why I had to go through that entire experience. Okay, my camera was doing something weird. But basically, I just don't understand why I had to endure such headache and strife because that is not what I experienced at Florida State College at Jacksonville. And I thought what I experienced there, I would experience at basically any university. But yep, that I didn't. I experienced something different, and I wish it was more positive, but that was my experience, and it's not my fault, and I did the best I could do. It did help me, or I guess teach me to overcome, but in the stress of school, you're already stressed, so then why add more stress? That's what confuses me. But I ended up with a good advisor. I think she was very helpful. She did start at one point communicating a little more, so I did appreciate that. And I will say that during the lockdown semester, I did feel that I could rely on her for any information or any direction or guidance. So I do appreciate that. So yeah, just to end, I guess, on a positive note, but that was my advising experience, and I probably talked a little bit more than I anticipated. So yeah, this video is getting pretty long, but let me get back to the wrap up. Okay, so that is basically how you advise yourself at UNC Chapel Hill. Whatever questions arose, please feel free to write them down and ask your advisor. If you have any additional questions and you cannot ask your advisor, or you would just prefer to ask me for whatever reason, I do encourage you to leave a question in the comments below, and I will try to answer it as soon as I can. And I will also probably try to create a list of questions for you to ask your advisor. The questions can vary depending on your major and minor, but I will try to list a general list of questions for you. And if you have any other questions about advising or about any other department like financial aid or questions in general, then I am more than happy to answer your questions if you leave them in the comments below. And if I get enough questions, I might do like a Q&A on UNC Chapel Hill and just answer them all at one time. But yeah, that's basically how you advise yourself. And you might have to speak with an advisor once a year, and then maybe once before school starts, but I don't know if they changed that or not. Anyway, like I said, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments on anything at all about UNC. And I hope this video helped you. Thank you for watching.